Hello, friends. The 1346th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. Russian forces continue to advance in Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad. In recent days, they have advanced south of Pokrovsk, and the gray zone has expanded significantly north and northwest of the city and into a pocket south of it, according to the deep state map. Russian forces are moving toward Grishny, west of Pokrovsk. The gray zone has also come close to Rodynske to the north, where Russian forces are outflanking the Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad agglomeration. Yesterday, Commander-in-Chief Rodynske commented on the situation in Pokrovsk. He stated that the Russian army had penetrated Pokrovsk, but that Ukrainian armed forces are not encircled there or in Kupiansk as Putin claims. The situation is complex, but Russian propaganda claims about the Ukrainian Defense Forces allegedly being blocked in Pokrovsk as in Kupiansk are untrue. Meanwhile, in Pokrovsk, enemy infantry, avoiding combat, is amassing in the urban area and changing locations, so the primary objective is to identify and destroy it, the commander-in-chief writes. He says he has issued the necessary orders, agreed with local commanders on tasks to strengthen the protection of supply and evacuation routes, and made a number of other decisions. Commanders are threatened with dismissal if they show irresponsibility. Meanwhile, military personnel and experts are already calling for the withdrawal of Ukrainian armed forces from Pokrovsk. Drone expert Flesh writes that the Russians, remembering their heavy losses during urban warfare in Bakhmut, decided to encircle the Pokrovsk agglomeration rather than assault it head-on. Since we couldn't resist this, we must take responsibility and courage, making unpopular decisions. I believe that nothing is more valuable to us than our people. We cannot waste our men for the sake of politics and public opinion, writes Biskresnov. Military officer Bonyatov agrees. Flash is right. Exiting the city in a timely manner and taking up defensive positions without panic is the best course of action, saving the lives of soldiers and allowing us to establish a proper defensive line. We shouldn't repeat the tragic story of Vuhledar, he writes. A Ukrainian soldier with the call sign Muchnoy writes today that what has long been talked about has happened. The Russians have begun to bring up reserves, and this is clearly noticeable in the pace of fighting. The enemy understands that time is against them, so they are trying to act as quickly as possible, creating gaps in urban areas, and trying to push through the defenses while they have the resources to do so. Currently, Russian units have consolidated their positions in the villages of Rig and Nativka. They are still moving in after our strikes and have dug in there with no signs of retreating, so both these villages are moving into the red zone, the soldier writes. Simultaneously, movement is being detected toward the Dinas district, where the enemy is attempting to dig in buildings and establish an additional stronghold in the north. Our units are targeting them with artillery and drones, destroying their manpower. Judging by the Russians' actions, the next step is to carve out a section of high-rise buildings in the east, where a new staging area could be formed. This isn't over yet. The battle for the city continues, and now is one of its toughest stages, writes Muchnoy. The situation in Myrnohrad is also deteriorating, and the Ukrainian armed forces' withdrawal from the city will be difficult, writes Muchnoy. Things are very tense in this area. I don't want to cause panic, let alone invent some nonsense about all is well, because not everything is relatively well, and it could soon get even worse. Leaving the city will be difficult. The corridors are under pressure, we need to find passages and figure out how to exit safely, without unnecessary risk, the serviceman wrote. According to him, Ukrainian troops are defending themselves in high-rise buildings in the southeastern part of the city, as well as in private housing in the northeast. The enemy is trying to block our escape routes, pressing on the exit from the area south of Rodynske, as well as on the approaches from northeast Pokrovsk, along the road to Myrnohrad. If the bottleneck holds and there's a gap, there's a chance to get our forces out of there. If not, the situation will become much more complicated, the soldier states. A Ukrainian officer with the call sign Alex writes that fighting in Myrnohrad is taking place on the eastern and northern outskirts of Myrnohrad. According to him, the overall situation in the Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad pocket is not encouraging. Yesterday, Putin ordered the Russian Ministry of Defense to ensure the passage of foreign journalists into the combat zone so they could verify the encirclement of Pokrovsk and Kupiansk. To this end, the Russian Ministry of Defense declared its readiness to cease fire for 5 to 6 hours. Ukrainian Foreign Ministry spokesman stated that Kyiv does not trust this initiative and that journalists visiting these cities on behalf of the Russian army would violate Ukrainian law. I described the situation in Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad above. Let's also look at the situation in Kupiansk. On Saturday, October 25, the Russians published a video of a flag allegedly planted in the village of Kurilivka. Kurilivka is located in the vicinity of Kupiansk-Vuzlovy, south of Kupiansk itself. If the village is lost, this puts all Ukrainian units east of Kupiansk in a dangerous position. Yesterday, the Russian Ministry of Defense also announced the capture of the village of Soduvy. If the capture of this town is confirmed, the enemy will be able to reach Kupiansk-Vuzlovy, effectively cutting off the entire Ukrainian armed forces group on the eastern bank of the Oskil River. It should be noted that Ukraine has not confirmed the loss of either Kurilivka or Soduvy. Today, the Russian Ministry of Defense continued to insist that Ukrainian armed forces units in Pokrovsk, Myrnohrad, and Kupiansk are encircled. This was the Russian ministry's comment on yesterday's ban on journalists visiting these areas, entering through corridors from the Russian side. Moscow continues to claim it is prepared to declare a ceasefire for several hours and allow foreign and Ukrainian media to the front line so they can see for themselves the encirclement of these territories. Presumably, the purpose of these Russian proposals is to demonstrate to Trump that the Russian version of the frontline configuration is the most reliable. Rumors suggest that various information streams are competing with each other around the U.S. president over Ukraine's actual situation on the front line. And in this sense, the statement by Putin and the Russian Ministry of Defense is an attempt to persuade Trump to side with Russia's vision of the situation.
Friends, I want to develop and strive for higher quality content, but my 2009 computer does not allow me to do this. If you have the opportunity to help me buy a new computer and make my dream come true, I will be very grateful to you. You will find the link in the description under the video and in the pinned comment. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.